Ho ho ho! Merry Mountain! Yes, on today's video I'm going to be ranking all of the brand new Wave 3 Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Expansion Pass tracks. That is a mouthful, but it's definitely worth it because so far we've seen Wave 1 and 2, which you could take a look at those videos that I made on those tracks specifically in the description down below. But these tracks are definitely a banger, so definitely stick around. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's jump right into the first track, which is a London Loop, everybody. London Loop is the next city track up on the block after we had ourselves in Wave 1 Tokyo Blur and Paris Promenade, and in Wave 2 Sydney Sprint and New York Minute. It is up next the capital of the UK, London Loop. And I would say that this is a pretty damn good track. I would say, however, though, that relatively compared to the previous four that I just mentioned, that you can get a lot more easily lost and it feels a lot more like a city compared to the other ones. Well, not just that, you know, that there are buildings and everything, but like it's actually huge where you go. You go in all sorts of zany directions as in the previous ones. Now, personally, I really like this one as well due to the fact that I have been here before. It was like 4 years ago at this point where I went with my class actually over to London. And I do recognize quite a few monuments and structures that are there, like the St. Paul's Cathedral, of course the London Eye. You can, a lot of people of course know the London Eye, one of the most like recognizable things in London. We've got, of course, the Tower Bridge, which is really cool. Feels like it's the bridge from Delfino Square, if you remember that track from Mario Kart DS and Mario Kart Wii, where you had like this drawbridge which you could like trick off of and boost off of. If we don't get that track back, I wouldn't even be mad, because at least we have the drawbridge back in this one. Although I'd still love to see it. We go in sort of all sorts of zany directions, and I would say this track definitely feels like London. I like how they have like the little fog up in the air, like that's what the city is also known for with its pollution and everything. I like how the chain chomps that are just there in laps 1 and 2 actually go loose the third one, and one of them even goes in the river. I think that's a great touch. Outside of like the chain chomps though, there's not really like a lot of obstacles. It's fun to just drift around in, but yeah, there's one huge like dry level shortcut over at the first chain chomp in lap 1 and 2. Outside of that, there's not really much going for this stage. Mostly just road. There's not like a lot of shortcuts, a lot of enemies or whatever. So it feels like a pretty tame city track, but a really fun one that I really liked going around in, especially since, you know, of all the structures that I recognize and places where I actually walk myself. So I'm gonna give this one a B tier. Up next is a Boo Lake, another remake of a GBA track, and we've already seen these before with Sky Garden and Snowland, but I gotta say those two were phenomenal, but this one is an absolute treat. It is such a blast. Boo Lake originally didn't really have anything to do with the water or anything, but now they actually include the underwater, and like it's actually on top of a lake, which is so cool. Of course, this couldn't have been done in Mario Kart Super Circuit, but it's so cool that they've actually done it. But for the track itself, I think it's a really good track, but it doesn't feel like it's necessarily made for this game. I feel like some of the certain sections are a little too sharp, a little few ninja hideaway turns, just like the one right before the underwater section, as well as the part where you can either go to the left side or right side, as there's in the middle some water. That's near the start after the first two jumps. And one of the turns in the water, like they all feel a tad bit too, too precise for this game, relatively compared to any other track in the game, except maybe Ninja Hideaway, which is also from the DLC, that I also thought a little bit of the same. That was like my only main criticism with it. Although in that one, it still feels like you can like respond to it on time. Like if you at least practice the stage a little bit, then you should be fine, just like Ninja Hideaway. But I still feel like for more casual players, this is a little too sharp. Outside of that though, like the underwater section is phenomenal with those dry bone fish that you see in the new Super Mario Bros. Games all the time. I think it's really cool to give them a chance in the spotlight. So that's just really cool and really unique. Yeah, there's not really much more to say about this track because it's kind of short, not gonna lie. Yeah, that's like my main criticism with the track, but Yeah, I feel like Blue Lake is a banger and definitely my favorite of the GBA tracks and remakes that we've gotten thus far, but I'll have to put it in B tier as it's good, but a little tad too short. Up next is the second track from Mario Kart 7. I don't know what they're doing with these picks, but Rock Mountain was one of my more tracks from Mario Kart 7, and not gonna lie, they didn't really change it all too much. One neat change though, let's start out with the positive, is definitely that the final section of the track where you go upwards is now an anti-gravity. So the items work a lot more normal on it, and there are now anti-gravity boost panels, which is very cool. Blue Lake, I forgot to mention that, also had those, which was also a really nice change of pace. But yeah, outside of that, the track is still relatively the same, and after getting Sky High Sunday in the first wave and already having 2 loop tracks in the base game, Excite Bike Arena and Baby Park, it's unfortunate to have another loop-based track. Yeah, it is definitely fun, you know, gliding and everything. This track really shows that off the best. Before Anna was Ninja Hideaway, but now it's this track for damn sure. Because you're like gliding for like 3/4 of it. It's such a long glide. But it does make it a lot more fun, otherwise I wouldn't enjoy it as much. I would say I enjoy this track more than Sky High Sunday, as this one has like its own like identity. Sky is just literally like a loop and a few jumps. This one is like gliding and everything like that. But as a good friend of mine, Sage-O-Matic, actually pointed out, it's pretty much Baby Park 4, and I'm getting kind of tired of these oval-based tracks with all of this. I like the shortcuts, so you can cut off quite a big portion of it. Doesn't feel like dry desert levels, but also not too small. But I would still have to give this one a D tier. I don't know what they're doing with the Mario Kart 7 choices thus far. Toad Circuit and now this. Like, Nintendo, come on. There are so many good tracks in Mario Kart 7. Why these? Up next is the fan favorite Maple Tree Way from Mario Kart Wii that also returned in Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart Tour, and everybody loves this map, and this was my personal favorite from Mario Kart Wii, and I'm so happy and delighted to say that this track is still as phenomenal as always, and maybe even better than the Tour and Mario Kart 7 version, as yes, this is the first stage in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It took an entire base game and an entire the first 2 DLC waves to get a one of those half-pipe sections. It's actually crazy, super cool to see those return. I wasn't really expecting them to come back, but it's fun that they're back anyways. It's not really faster than the regular turn, but it's still so much fun. And I must say, Maple Tree Way is still as good as ever, as nothing's really changed outside that those are back. The net is still gone, but this track looks phenomenal now. It looks absolutely beautiful. The whalers are back. It's still as much fun with all the drifting and everything. It really does feel like you're in Mario Kart Wii in this stage. Like Mushroom Gorge and Coconut Mall really felt like they were changed to fit this engine more and more. But I must say, Maple Tree Way still feel like you're playing Mario Kart Wii. It looks so beautiful now, except that one section with the wigglers. The grass textures look a little but outside, I must say this is the best looking track we have gotten thus far. I don't really know what to say about it. It's Maple Tree Way. You know how good it is. You know that it's still a banger. And that's why I gotta give it an S tier. Like, this track is so phenomenally good. The theming of fall with all these trees is just amazing. So I can't give it any less than an S tier. Now we're going to take a little detour and going to take a look at the update, because last time during Wave 2 we got a small little update alongside of the actual tracks dropping, and this time around is so different, as I would arguably say that this update is a lot better, as it adds probably one of the best features we've ever seen in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or for any Mario Kart for that matter, which is custom items. Yes, you can now decide on which items you would like to see. This is probably an answer to all of those challenge videos we've seen over the last like year or two. So this is a pretty cool answer, so that we can have it delivered by Nintendo themselves without hacking or modding. So thank you, Nintendo, for adding this, as this definitely improves my time with the game, as you can now like goof around with all sorts of crazy items like blue shells only, lightning only, bullet bill only, maybe blue shells, lightning, bullet bill. And why am I only talking about those three? I don't know. Anyhow, this is a really cool, really nice update, and hey, you should definitely try it out for yourself, as I've had a lot of fun and a lot of laughs with it thus far. Anyways, let's move on to the second cup in this DLC. Alright, it is time for the second cup of Wave 3, which is time for Berlin Byways. Yes, we're going to the capital of Germany. I guess this wave is Europe in its finest, as I must say Berlin Byways is an absolute banger of a track. Together with Amsterdam Drift and Vancouver Velocity, personally the ones I was looking forward to the most. Probably because of the music. I don't know. I didn't know much about the layout. I only really checked out Berlin Byways 2, which looked very cool. And I must say the theming of this one is really cool. And probably one of the best city tracks thus far. Like, London was fun and all, but this is an absolute banger with all the monuments and things like that. Compared to London, though, I did not go to Berlin, or I haven't even gone to Berlin in my life. But this is the first city track with actually moving traffic, which is really neat to see. Like, that it's a city track doesn't necessarily mean it needs traffic, but in previous Mario Kart games, all the city tracks, such as Mushroom City or Moonview Highway, always had moving traffic. So that's cool to see for this one, which also makes sense because you do go on the highway on this one compared to the other ones. But even outside now, you go through the subway station, really reminding me of Super Bell Subway, although it was only for like a brief bit. I like it that you can actually go in like the little train. There's like an item box there. It's hard to do it without like bumping into things, but it's really neat. And outside that, there's a nice gliding section on lap number 2, which is cool to see. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about lap 2 because it mostly feels like something akin to Mushroom City and Moonview Highway once again, as there's quite a few turns with quite a few cars that you must avoid. But after you go into like this nice little park, if you may, where you can like perform a shortcut, which is really cool to see. Like a park like randomly in Berlin is really nice and really sweet. And then you go under the Reichstag, and then you go into lap number 3, which is probably my favorite lap from this entire track. Like, if you thought lap 1 and 2 were already cool with their theming, with the highway and the subway, nah man, you have not seen anything, as in a lap number 3 you go backwards from lap number 1, I believe. No, you actually go to like an entirely different area. I don't really know how this all connects, but you go past the Berlin Wall, which is kind of interesting, as the Berlin Wall, for you historians that don't know, I know a lot about history, but yeah, the Berlin Wall is supposed to be already down. So the Berlin Wall is there, but to show that it's actually down, the actual wumps there, I don't really know how to feel about that, but that's kind of cool, I must say, because you can actually trick off the wumps. And we've seen wumps as enemies before, but never wumps, at least at Mario Kart. And when you trick off of them, you go flying, like you just go out into space. It's actually crazy. One of my favorite additions to the show, of course, the fall of the Berlin Wall. Then you go to like this nice subsection where you get a few boosts, go past another building, back to the park from lap number 2, and finish the race just like that. And yeah, it's just all the way through. There's so many turns, so many fun things like the wumps, so many enemies in terms of like the cars, the subway. It's so unique. It brings like a different theming every single lap. Like, it doesn't feel the same. It never feels boring. There's always something new being thrown at you. The only really like critical thing I could say about this track is that the traffic, and that's actually a pretty big one, and that like lap 2 is really long with the traffic, relatively compared to the other 2 laps, and maybe even compared to other tracks in the game. So yeah, it does feel like it's a bit long when you go on Berlin, especially if you compare to something such as Tokyo Blur or New York Mid, which were pretty short tracks. So I'm going to give this one an A tier. Loved it. The turns were amazing. Theming was great. Maybe a tad bit too long, but in terms of the city tracks outside of Sydney, this is definitely my favorite thus far, and I must put it at the top of A tier. Alright, time for another Mario Kart DS track. Last time we had Waluigi Pinball getting into S tier, but now we're getting ourselves Peach Gardens, which was originally the second track in the Lightning Cup of Mario Kart DS, or actually Special Cup, excuse me. and the second track in the Lightning Cup and Mario Kart we see. That's where I got confused with. And now it's the second one here in the Power Moon Cup. As, yeah, we're back at Peach Gardens, and I think this track is better than ever before. A lot of people that I know, at least, told me that this track wasn't very interesting. They weren't very much looking forward to it, because this one compared, as well as another one actually that got revealed in the September Nintendo Direct. We already knew about these way before all the other ones of this wave. And that was like a point of discussion. I also thought beforehand this track didn't look the best, but now seeing it in its final version, this track looks phenomenal. And I think it hasn't looked better because the hedges in the hedge maze part don't even look like regular hedges anymore, but it's actually hedges based off of Mario characters such as Luigi and Peach. Like, it is so friggin' cool. I love the concept so much, and you can now also trick in like 2 sections. It's so cool. I just think that in the final section, before you go on like the little road back towards the finish, there used to be like trick ramps. It's kind of weird to me that they are gone, but at least you can still use a mushroom to get a nice shortcut in right there at the end. And yeah, if that was it for Peach Gardens, I would probably give it a B, like it's very solid, but I'm going to give it an 8 here, as in lap number 3, they're going to, you know, get you dizzy, they're going to change up your mind, they're going to change the way you play the track, as just like with Calamari Desert from the last wave, you actually go backwards, and compared to, well, Calamari wasn't necessarily you go backwards, it was like a different route, but at least this time going backwards opens up like a different route, but also makes you go backwards after a little while, which is a very nice change of pace for this track for the people that thought it was boring. As on the way back during the hedge maze section, you actually go gliding, which is really cool. You can do a few fun tricks, as well as go through Luigi or Peach's hedges, which is very cool. My only issue though with this section is that the shortcut that was meant to be in the beginning, yes, is now for the end, and I thought this one is a little too big for an end shortcut. Like, for a start shortcut, like, it's all good, and you can still change things up and everything like that. You can, in lap 1 you probably wouldn't even have a mushroom, but now with a final set of item boxes being like pretty much right before it, if you pick up a mushroom you could just go quite a few places higher, because it's quite a big cut right there at the end at Peach Gardens, which kind of, I don't know, undermines the value for the stage for me. Like, I wouldn't say the shortcut is as bad as Dry Desert, but I wouldn't say it's small either, so I would have to give this track an A tier. Great change. Yeah, the shortcut a little meh. Yeah, that is legit my main concern with this track. Outside of that, it looks fantastic. Presentation is awesome. It could have looked much worse if you compare it to another grass themed track from earlier on the DLC like Shroom Ridge. So A tier feels nice and justified to me. Ho ho ho, Merry Mountain. Yes, it's time for Merry Mountain, which was, as I previously mentioned, the other track compared to, well, together with Peach's Gardens that got revealed before all the other ones back during the September Nintendo Direct, and this was the track of the wave that I was looking forward to. As, well, at least the one in Wave 1, the tour original track that wasn't based on a City Ninja Hideaway, was an S tier, my favorite track by far in that wave. Skymax Sunday was a little less, but hey, nonetheless, this one came out before Ninja Hideaway, so it must be good, right? Well, I would say it's definitely a banger. Quite a few really nice turns you can make, and even outside of that, there's lots of tricks to perform, and there's actually anti-gravity on this stage. Yes, just like Boo Lake and Rock Mountain, there's actually use of anti-gravity, which is really cool to see, alongside the return of the trick ramps as well. This is how we knew it beforehand, because this track got revealed before Maple Tree Way, which is the one that gets in here in a more chronological order. That's why you heard it earlier. And in laps 2 and 3, there's actually, in the downhill section, there's actually a glider, which is really cool to see. I think that's also a great addition. And from what one of our community members, Fowler, actually pointed out to me, this is the only track to feature and anti-gravity and half pipes and a glider section. Now the only thing missing at this point is water, but that wouldn't really work for the theming on this track, huh? Warrior Shipyard, huh? But yeah, I would say that this is still like another banger. It's basically you just going up the mountain, going down the mountain. That section feels maybe a little short, and there's one shortcut, which I'm a little indifferent to. I think it's great. It's right before the downhill section, where you can use a mushroom and cut out a huge portion. I don't really know what to think of it yet. It feels a little dry, although you can still stop someone compared to dry on this skip. But yeah, that kind of gets it down just a little tiny bit. So I would still say this track is an absolute banger. Not as great as Ninja Hideaway, but definitely not the worst track we've gotten so far. So Merry Mountain is an A tier in my eyes. And now it's time for probably the most hyped up track for the entire DLC. And as mentioned before, I didn't think Nintendo had the greatest Mario Kart 7 picks thus far, but Rainbow Road was, yeah, that was a great pick. In my opinion, still overrated, but a definite banger in this DLC. Like, just look at the road texture. It's moving, alright. Yeah, it's actually crazy. I love Rainbow Road 3DS. It's not my favorite Rainbow Road in the entire series, but it's definitely a banger. And compared to what we had right now with the original one in Mario Kart 8 and SNES, I did not enjoy those. N64 was really good, but this one is probably going to be my favorite one that we have in the game at the moment. Although I still think N64 Rainbow Road is also an absolute banger. But this is another free lap track, just like how we had Mount Wario in the base game. I don't know if we had any other ones besides Mount Wario, but oh yeah, N64 Rainbow Road, of course. How could I forget? Nah, but this one's definitely a banger and changes things up nicely. As you start out going around Saturn's rings, go for a nice few tricks. And you actually go on the moon on this one with another, yes, 4 out of the 8 tracks with another anti-gravity section, which is even cooler to see. Really reminds me of the battle mode map, a lunar colony, and it's just a great time. Lap 3 with the music just going in ham is also amazing. I would say the end portion there is maybe a little boring, and there's not really a whole lot there going on after you go through the rings with either gliding or racing, but this track is so phenomenally good, especially compared to the Rainbow Roads that we've had thus far. At least in Mario Kart 8 itself, so there's no way I cannot give this an S tier. Absolutely a banger, and yeah, I would definitely pick this one if it came up online. So here's the final ranking. Did you agree with my opinions, or did you disagree? Definitely let me know in the comment section down below on what you thought of the Wave 3 Booster Course expansion pass tracks. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Good night, everyone.